Hello there! This is Ricky Raven. Oh, what fun I get to have today, because I've been asked to tell you the story of the ravens. I'm very excited to share it. This is the history of my kind as it has been passed down through all our generations since the beginning of time. It has been kept by my kind to preserve our respect for the one who created us, for each other, and to be able to share with those different from ourselves. Throughout all my time, my kind was given great honor and responsibility. Come, listen, and see for yourself. On the day we were made, the earth was new, and we took to the sky and saw the grasses and the trees were brilliant greens of many hues, and there were beautiful plants and flowers of all sorts that covered the entire land. As the first ones flew, far and wide, they could see all the bodies of water were teeming with life of almost an unimaginable variety. Numerous, completely different kinds of creatures frolicked and played all throughout the entire world. The very next day, they watched as all crawling and four-legged animals of many shapes and sizes came into being. Some were far bigger than anything still living, and we shared the skies with scaly creatures that had wingspans far greater and wider than anything alive today. There were also many new other animals that had something even more unique. You know it as fur. On the same day, two of the mankind were also made. First the male, and he's the one who gave us the name Raven. Then, shortly after, the female was made, and together they were loving and kind to all things, and they spent much time watching, playing, and caring for all the different kinds of creatures the earth was so full of. And for a long time, everything under the sun, moon, and stars was at peace with each other. And there was a feeling of wonder and tranquility all throughout the entire earth. All the land was one, and all the living creatures had plenty to eat, for there was fruits and nuts and seeds in abundance, and nothing hunted something else, and nothing killed another for food. It was a most perfect place. But then one day it all changed. Two of the menkind began wearing skins of animals that had been killed, and we gave them a new name, the covered ones, for they alone wear something that wasn't theirs. Snakes became strangely defensive, and although all the earth was still beautiful, no one was allowed into the special garden anymore. In a short time, certain plants and trees developed prickly parts and thorns, and foraging for food became more difficult. All the creatures of the earth began to mistrust each other, and many of them began to keep to themselves and not have anything to do with others not like themselves. As the covered ones began to multiply, they began to change drastically, and more they became hateful and selfish, and violence and death spread throughout the entire land. Then a great wooden box was built, and young members of every kind that breathed air were taken aboard. And one day the box was closed and sealed, and then it rained for a long time. When the rain finally stopped, and it had been sunny and bright for a time, one of my ancestors was the first to be freed. And it is told that he flew for a long distance and was greatly grieved by what he saw, for all the world was greatly changed. The air itself was different, and a new arc of color appeared in the sky, but even flying itself became more work. All the large ones had been lost, and nothing has ever grown to such great size since. Everywhere my ancestor flew, he saw many wondrous changes from the watery disaster, and even though the land had some striking new features, it was desolate, and there was a foreboding emptiness throughout the entire world. He wept and would not return to the others that were still trapped in the box, but instead waited patiently for his mate to be released. And from that point on, we ravens mistrusted everything and everyone, and all things became both our enemy and our food. Still to this day, ravens are mistrusting of all other creatures, but there's a longing in me for it not to be so. In my youth, I wanted to be friends with all kinds, including the covered ones, but growing up, I was taught by all the older ravens that death and killing is the way of the world. That is how we survive. But my kind also tells of a day when the world will return to how it was when it was young, that something happened with one of the covered ones back in time. Members of my kind watched as this unique one was beaten and ridiculed, even though he had done no wrong. Then he was paraded through the streets, uncovered and nailed naked to a strange wooden tree. And we saw him die, but he was not left for the birds to devour, and all were amazed, for a short time later they saw him again, alive. But there was something very different about him. And it is said that through this one, love and peace that was known way back in the beginning has already begun to make its way back into the world. And we've been promised a day when all creatures of all the earth will get along again, and that there will be a renewed time without fear, and there will be no more death. All of creation is waiting for that day. To this day, ravens are bothered by the fact that so many men have such a shallow view of the incredible life all around them, and so many wander through life with no hope for the future. That's why ravens love to share their history of the world with all those willing to take the time to listen. They see a great importance of being able to share their hope for the future with others, so they too can be comforted and know that one day all creatures of this earth will live in peace and harmony, even with the covered ones. See, ravens know this is not the end.